What's up, Exiles? It's Hegemony, and the long-awaited PvP official PvP tournaments are going to be starting in December. I'm going to go ahead and go over some of these uh, notes that they have for us, and go over what I talked with Green Dude, and give you my thoughts and the rundown of what I think the upcoming PvP venue is going to look like. In this post, Chris says, we'll be releasing a major update to Path of Exile's PvP feature set in December. This will be released in the 1.3.0 update alongside new challenge leagues. Today's news post outlines our plans for these PvP features. We'll be starting our first formal PvP season in December. Each season will feature a variety of different tournaments, ranging from shorter casual events with rapid matchmaking to larger scale multi-hour tournaments with Swiss pairings. We're also planning a type of free-for-all event inspired by the Sarn Arena. The PvP seasons will last roughly a month each and will feature alternate art unique items as prizes. So not only are they gonna have the same structure that they have with race prizes, the demis for PvP is the Talisman of the Victor Jet Amulet. It's unique in its own implicit, 12 to all resist, 6% movement speed, 10% increased global defenses. This isn't really anything to write home about. It's more just like a novelty trophy, but it's still cool, and I kind of wish that it may increase your size. I definitely think that fits the PvP feel of superiority and things like that. But alright, let's continue this thread. We've been putting a lot of effort into improving the tools for PvP balance. We want to make sure we can balance the skills and damage scaling in a way that doesn't affect the core PvE game. In order to give players the tools and combat various popular builds in the PvP metagame, we're designing unique items that are both very useful for PvP characters, but also have some niche uses in PvE, like Dream Fragments. We typically tease out news on major updates during the month before they are released. However, for this PvP update, we want to be more transparent. We want to have a more transparent process with the community, meaning they want to hear your feedback. We'll be posting frequent news updates about progress, balance changes, and other improvements to how PvP works. We also plan to involve the PvP community heavily in testing these tournaments on our alpha servers. Last week, we flew out a community member, Green Dude, to our office in New Zealand and spent 3 days learning everything we could about how people play PvP in Path of Exile. While we've played it a lot on our internal test servers, it was extremely valuable learning from what rules the community prefers, what metagame has developed, and what problems that they have encountered that need improving. Green Dude has been involved in decisions about every part of PvP, ranging from tournament structure to metagame tools to damage scaling and balance of specific skills. In addition to the PvP features, 1.3.0 introduces new challenge leagues. These properties of these challenge leagues will be revealed closer to launch, but they are not PvP focused. In December 1.3.0, the update is roughly the halfway mark between Forsaken Masters and the 1.4.0 Act 4 expansion will be releasing early next year. So, hats off to Green Dude. I'm really happy that he got to reach and giving them feedback. One thing that I was very, very disappointed was there was no focus on high-level PvP. And from when I talked to Green Dude, I talked to him for about maybe a little over an hour on Mumble. And I expressed some of my concerns about high-level dueling getting pushed aside and their reasoning. That was the main thing I wanted to know and he pretty much told me it was a time constraint thing, since low-level dueling is restricted to level 28. The amount of support gems, skill gems, and the amount of items you can use is very limited, in the scope of Path of Exile. So it was much easier to balance, from the specific, tuning of the actual effectiveness in the arena without affecting any of its race qualities or or PvE qualities. They were able to tone each individual gem as they saw fit. Now, while this is nice, some of the reasoning that he put behind HLD not happening was because they wanted to make it sure that it came out or it was released in a good state. And this is the major concern that I have. In a good state, when the scope is so big, the learning curve is so massive. Currently, there's like a stigma going around with the PvP community. You need best in slot mirrored gear, blah 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 blah. But these are completely ignoring the fact that understanding the PvP meta is completely different. Doing this in a new league or new challenge league would alleviate some of the having best in slot mirror gear, but it really it's not brought to the table because they want to balance it, and I feel like that doesn't really set in too much, because it's kind of like a happy accident. A lot of the stuff in Path of Exile, I guess by mistake, is already pretty balanced. It's more about the understanding of certain combinations and mechanics and synergies of what's good in PvP versus PvE. And I feel like the people who understand what items are good and what items synergize well are always going to excel, regardless of how much currency that they do have. They know how to put it together. There's a lot of things to learn about what counters, what tools are going to help you, and how to best synergize it with different pieces of gear, and what are your weaknesses. After that, it becomes a balancing act between how you balance your tree, whereas you might be doing extremely well versus a certain matchup, so you don't need to spend so many points that will help you in that, and more balance the ones on balance your skill points to your weaknesses. It's stuff like this. It's stuff like adapting and hot swapping based on what you see, what information you're given. Those kinds of things are what create a very, very fun and dynamic like arena. And I feel like a lot of the veteran PvP players that have had or delved into the art of PvP and Path of Exile have already quit at this point. So we're left with the few that have been very, very patient, and it's not that many. Once we were a community of like hundreds, and now it feels like we're almost at a community of like 50. So the whole idea of trying to balance high level dueling, I think it's a very, very wishful thinking as far as like deployment. If they're really gonna go through all the items that you can attain and skill gems and all that thing, I just feel like it's never gonna be released, like maybe another year from now. And I honestly feel like you can just release it as is now and let people, there's already a few major things that we can all agree on in PvP, especially high level dueling, that it's a bit overpowered. And that's Molten Shell and Tempest Shield and probably Temp Chains. Not so much as what it does, but how effective it is. So maybe a reduction in Temp Chains, things like this, greatly take away from the skill factor and make it more about just having the right setup, which it shouldn't be, So, but like, if you can fix those, few things, PvP would already be in a good state. Now, a lot of the community is going to be like, well, how are you going to compete against those people that have been PvPing for so long or whatever? Well, I guess your option would be to PvP in a brand new challenge league, a league where legacy items don't exist, or a league where you haven't been playing. These people have been farming permanent leagues in anticipation for, high level PvP, and it's kind of like, it's kind of upsetting, like that people point fingers or like, oh, these guys have an unfair advantage. Well, well, damn, they've been prepping for this moment, this entire time. They spend, they haven't been playing new leagues. They haven't been focusing on, challenges or races. Their main set was, and their time investment was towards permanent league, accumulating currency, getting all the gear that they want, trying to master it. Of course, they're going to have an advantage. They put in significantly more time. Now, I talked to Green Dude, and he said that they were going to normalize, crit multiplier, so that the more you have of it, the less of effect you would have in the arena. While I think this is okay, overall, I feel crit is still pretty strong. Some builds rely on, that glass cannon, execution. In order for that build to be successful, and as soon as they lose that one shot or that heavy multi-shot ability or payload, then their build completely becomes unviable if your opponent is able to escape, things like that. But these are all major concerns of mine, because I honestly don't feel that you can balance high level dueling like off the bat. It's going to be an ongoing process, but I definitely feel like high level duelers right now that are very avid about PvP can definitely give a lot of insight to where immediate balances are needed, and I think it needs to be deployed. Honestly, it needs to bring more people, and honestly, I feel like it's going to have to be new people. Unless they have some kind of draw to bring the old players that quit back. It's going to be creating new enthusiasts, new PvP enthusiasts, and it's going to be kind of like starting from ground zero. I mean, really, that people have been waiting for a long time. I think we were promised PvP in like last November, and it's already like almost November again. So we're about 1 year on the delay, and I don't know what GGG's expectations are. The last thing I want to see is GGG releases high-level dueling and people just like either have some kind of really negative stigma against it, and then they see a lack of participation, and then they just shut it down, and they just continue high-level dueling. My passion for this game has always been high-level dueling. I mean, you guys know, every day I say what keeps me going is high level dueling. We're promised high level dueling, and then we're like, okay, well, we're gonna focus on low level. And it's like, okay, well, I really need to see something soon. I'm very eager, and with the launch of an actual structured tournament, I really hope they make the right decisions, and don't forget the people that have been preparing for this moment. I feel like they have a lot of work cut out for them, and their expectations need to be brought a lot lower, because to be fair, it's a lot of time has elapsed, and a lot of great players have fallen. But yeah, I just wanted to share my 2 thoughts on this PvP December update, and I'll continue to give I'll make a couple more videos about what I think about the PvP meta in its current state. And I hope you guys like this video. If you like this video, please feel free to subscribe, hit the like, hit the follow button, and visit me on Twitch TV. You can also ask me questions. I'll be free to answer them. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.